welcome to the stream. So let's just do it like a Java class and call it, just call it like list for now. That's okay. There are other things here, but yeah, we're gonna go with class. So let's just hit enter. And hopefully you guys can see that. I have kind of blown this up a little bit for, it's like in presentation mode. So hopefully this is coming out a lot clean and easy to read. There's always, as a coder, there's like multiple ways to do stuff in coding, you know. So there's not like one correct answer. I think everyone has their own preference. So what you're gonna see me do is I'm just gonna go down my own path and just try to have fun with it. We do want to create, so one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a file object. So I should probably call it like file object. Oops, can't type today. And so let's just say file path. Let's see here. So what the easiest way to do here with IntelliJ is you can have it import that particular class. So what we can do is we can say, hey, what are we trying to do here, right? For us, we're trying to work with the file object, which is part of the java.io package. So Java has a lot of packages. So we're going to say, yep, put that in. What that did up above, as you can see, I did not have this import statement. I never typed it, but the IDE went ahead and sort of generated that for me. So what we're going to say is file path, and then we're going to do new file. And generally, this is where we're creating a file object for a particular path. And as you can see, it's kind of telling me, hey, you need to give me like a path name. Instead of manually typing this stuff, like what I mean by that is, so I can put in like a string here, and I can say, it's telling me a path name, so I can say C : something, right? So in my instance, I could be like the directory that I'm working in, for example. Here, I'm just going to copy it. My path file here, which isn't, this is like something that I've made up just for streaming purposes. So here we go. So that's kind of, oops, wrong thing, because we need to have, sorry, let me zoom out a bit. Okay, so there you go. And I can do that, but let me try something different, which is, instead of having all that name, you know, I like to modularize the code a bit. So what I can do is I'll give it something called path name. Let's just call it like path name for now. And then up above, what we can do is, I'll just say define path name, right? So here I can have path name as a variable, and what I can do in here is put this in. So that way in the future, if I have to modify my code, instead of going in here in the file object every time. Now there's pros and cons here. Like some people will say, well, you're using up extra, there's a trade-off. Some people is going to say, well, you're using, you know, you're creating another variable, you're using more sort of memory space and whatnot, and that's true. So there's always a trade-off in, I think, coding like that. But it also comes down to readability and other things in the future. If another developer was reading this piece of code, you want them to be able to better understand, right? So I think understandability, readability are those key pillar points as well that you want to keep in mind moving forward. So yeah, so this is a path name, and let me just actually test something out. I've never done this before, so if it errors out, bear with me. But let's just do like a print out the path. This could be like a debug. It's not recommended. I don't recommend using print statements to debug your code. But in this instance, it might just be worth it for us to see this. Path.getName, right? So I don't want to access my static path name. I want to be able to say, I defined a file object. Hey, let's just see if I can do a get name from it. And what does it do? So it's actually telling me it's going to return a string. And yeah, we're going to say we want the get name. Sure. Now let's see what we get here. It's just giving me get list of files. Now why is that? Because if you look at the entire path, is just saying there's relative path, and then there's like the full path in Java, things of that nature. And in this particular instance, if I go and I do like information for this particular right here, returns the name of the file or directory denoted by this abstract path name. This is just the last name in the path's name sequence. So it's telling us exactly what it is, which is, it's not the full up, it's just the last name in the path's name sequence, and that's it. So if the path name sequence is empty, then the empty string is returned. The name of the file or directory denoted by this abstract path name, or the empty string if this path name's sequence is empty, is what is returned. There are, I think if I go back, I'm not really sure, but again, this is just a quick check to see that our file object is working as we expected, right? So now if I go and say give me the absolute path, well, let's check this out. Not statically. This is hard-coded. We're not going off the hard-coded. We pass the hard-coded value into a Java file object, and now we're saying, okay, let me get that out. All right, let's see. So what do we get now? So instead of that, we should get the absolute path, bam, right below. You can see this time I did not get just the get list of files, right? In fact, I should say here, that would probably be a better thing. I should say, oops, what happened? Okay, there we go. Absolute path name is, I can't type today, absolute path name is, and then that, right? So now right here it says path name. So this, all I did right now is just I'm updating the output right here. So now I was going to say absolute path name is C users Daniel Ocean, blah blah blah, and there you go. Pretty neat, right? List, if we want to list all the files and the directories within here, right? I just want to list all the files and the directories. So let's see. So list all files and directories. Let's see. So if I do path dot experiment time, so we say, okay, so we can get a list of files that will return, and it's going to return an array of file objects, and then we can cycle through those, array of file objects. Or we can get a list, right? What does this do? Let's read. Returns an array of strings naming the files and directories in the directory denoted. Well, that's kind of what we want, right? We kind of want like a list of the files and the directories. So let's make that happen. Let's try it. I mean, that's part of the fun about programming, is kind of trying this stuff. But so if I did, I'm going to purposely make a mistake here to show. So let's say I'll call, what should I call this? I'll just call it list to keep it simple. Okay, so I'll just say list equals, and that is returning, right? So I'll say path name dot list. Where'd it go? Sorry. Path, not path name. Path dot list. Sorry, not path name. The path name is a string, whereas path is the file object. So okay, so if I do list, there we go, right? So we're going to get a little squiggly underline because of this error I'm about to make purposely to prove a point. There you go. And the reason for that is because if you read again the description of this list method and what it returns, right? It's returning an array of strings, not just a string, an array of strings. So what is my mistake here? Well, my mistake here is I need to have an array specifically. So in Java, you can kind of define it. This is one way to do it, and there are other ways to do it, but this is how I'm going to do it. Let me just type something. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, so we'll just say printing list of all files and directories in path above, or in the above path. Let me zoom out a bit so you can kind of see it. Okay, so this is just kind of setting the stage, right? So this is like kind of a just info message. One of the things is in Java, what I was going to say is it's an array, so we have to traverse this array, right? So we can just say traverse array and print list of files and directories, right? Okay. So going further down. How do we do that in Java? Well, we're going to use a for loop. All right, so for IntelliJ is smart enough, it's saying, hey, which one do you really want? Now, if I had an array list, which is part of the Java collection, which is like a data structure, I could probably go with that, or I could convert my array of strings into an array list and other things jumping through hoops, but I'm going to keep this demo simple. So for now, we're just going to do like a for I, which is like an iteration loop, right? Starting point, so arrays are indexed, they start at 0. So we're saying, okay, well, what is the kind of the endpoint, right? The endpoint is going to be the length of this array. So what we want to do is we have a list, and that list has a length, more than likely. So let's just say list dot, there you go. It actually, you saw that, right? The IntelliJ thing was like already filling it for me. So just saying, hey, look, this list has a length. Yep, that's what we want. And even if I didn't choose that, I can just go like length and it will still show up, right? So no big deal. And then, we increment, and now the key thing is we are traversing this list, and each list index is basically an entry, like a string entry. So we can simply, instead of creating like an intermediate temp variable, which would be a waste of resources, we can just simply print this out. And by the way, what I'm doing there, generally like on an Atom or some source code editor, here's how you would do it. You would do system.out.println, right? So this is like, system.out.println is for outputting stuff to the console. IntelliJ has a pretty sweet thing where IntelliJ is all about keyboard friendly. So what you do is you just do like these shortcuts. It says print a string to the system out, right? And if you want to read more about it, all it says is print a string to system.out. That's all. So here, it just fills it in for you. So just a bit of a shortcut, nothing more. Okay, so we're going to traverse the list, but now what are we really going to be outputting, right? We have to make use of the index, right? So I'm covering, like I said, I'm going a little bit into the basics. So if you don't, hopefully you enjoy that. So system.out.println, and then what we're going to do is we have a list, right? And that list has a particular indexed entry, and there you go. Now this should, right, because each entry is a string, so it should return out for us each of the list of files and directories at the absolute path that we had defined, right? So when I print this out, let's think it through. Like, one of the things I have encouraged even others to do, and I also do myself, is before you start just experimenting and and running and all, that's great, but at the same time, even if you're in the beginning phase, like, stop and think before you actually run your code. Convince yourself and in your head that, okay, what would that output be, right? And I think it's a good step before you actually run to help you understand your code better. So in this instance, we're saying we're going to traverse this array. So we returned an array, we store it, we have to traverse this string array, and we're traversing it by using a for loop. Each entry of the list, the string, this array has a string entry in it, and that entry could be a file, it could be a directory, or what have you, right? In this instance, our absolute path that we're working with and the file object, right? This is everything's happening on this sort of file object that we defined here. So, and this is part of this path. So let's go to that path on my computer right now. So we're going to go to C, Users, DanielOcean, OneDrive. We're kind of take a look at that, right? To see what it comes down to. So if I go to the particular folder, let's take a peek here. Here we go. So we have that idea. This is like an IntelliJ folder, don't worry about it. So don't worry about the overall structure, but in the get list of files, right? So here is the path, Java practice get list of files. This is that path up above in green that you're looking at. These are the directories, and here's like one file. So total of 4 entries, right? So when I do that print, I should see .idea, out, source, and get list of files.iml come out. Let's see if that happens. So we're gonna go back. Now we're gonna run our code and see what happens. So here we go. We're running our code. Let's see what we get. printing list of all files and directories in the above path. .idea, get list of files.iml, out and source. Bingo. Now to bring that back again, let me just show you. .idea, there it is. Get list of files iml, there it is. Out, source, source. So we were able to successfully write a piece of code. As you can see, it doesn't take much, right? Let me zoom out a second. I mean, if escaping like, you know, the white spaces and whatnot, we're talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, about 7 lines of code, right? So there you go. We wrote about 7 lines of code, and we are able to list all files. And I'm just going to update. Always could do a good job of commenting as well, right? So I'll just say list. This program will list all files and directories for a given. Now we can. It's okay to revisit. I wouldn't call this particularly refactoring, but it's always go back to revisit your comments and polish them up after you've written, because sometimes design requirements and other things also change. So what we're going to say is that directories for a given absolute path, right? And that's what we're doing here. So that's really it for today. Like I said, if you enjoy this type of content, let me know what you thought of this. You know, I would like to get some feedback. I think I'm going to maybe do some more of this. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. I will be back here shortly again to do some other stuff. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this.